Hare Krishna everyone, welcome back to the reading of the book entitled Teachings of Lord Chaitanya by His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. So, this is Shravanam Diaries podcast. I'm your host Sulalita Devidasi and we are continuing to read chapter number 1, Teachings to Rupa Goswami. There are still other factors which can disturb the plant of devotional service. As this plant grows, the weeds of material desires may also grow. When a person advances in devotional service, it is natural that many persons will come to him requesting to become disciples and will offer him some material gains. If one is attracted by a large number of disciples offering material conveniences and forgets his duty as a bona fide spiritual master, the growth of the plant will be impeded. Simply by taking advantage of material conveniences, one may become addicted to enjoying material comforts. Other impediments are to desire liberation or material name and fame by discharging devotional service, or to neglect the prohibitions. These prohibitions are mentioned in the authorized scriptures. One should not indulge in illicit sex, intoxication, gambling, or eating meat. Indeed, one should not eat anything other than Kṛṣṇa prasadam, food offered to Kṛṣṇa. These are the restrictions for one who is attempting to advance in devotional service. If one does not follow these principles strictly, there will be a severe disturbance in the discharge of devotional service. If one is not particularly careful by watering the plant of devotional service, one will instead nourish the weeds described above, which will then grow very luxuriantly and hamper one's progress. The idea is that when one waters a garden, not only does the desired plant grow rapidly, but the unwanted plants grow also. If the gardener does not see these weeds and cut them down, they will overcome and choke the plant of devotion. I find it very important that, like here Prabhupada writes that if the gardener does not see these weeds and cut them down, it's important to see the weeds, and sometimes we may not see the weeds within our own garden. And I find that devotees really come to rescue in that matter. That's why it's very important to have very confidential, open, honest, relationships with devotees who can actually, and of course spiritual master, it's the first person who will tell you about, they have the vision, they see the weeds that are growing in your heart, and they can help you to point them out, to expose them and cut them down, so that your plant of devotion would not choke, would not be overcome. Jai. So, continuing. It is thus the duty of the neophyte devotee to cut down all the weeds that may grow by the watering process of devotional service. If one is careful to guard against the growth of these weeds, the plant of devotion will grow luxuriantly and reach the ultimate goal, Goloka Vrindavan. When the living entity engaged in devotional service relishes the fruit of love of God, he forgets all religious rituals aimed at improving his economic condition. He no longer desires to satisfy his senses, and he no longer desires to become one with the Supreme Lord by merging into his effulgence. There are many practices leading to spiritual knowledge and transcendental bliss, including the ritualistic sacrifices recommended in the Vedas, the execution of austerities and pious duties, and the practice of mystic yoga. These all reward different results to their performers. But all these rewards appear to glitter only as long as one is not elevated to the transcendental, loving service of the Lord. Love of God is dormant in everyone, and it can be awakened from its dormant position by the execution of pure devotional service. Just as a person bitten by a serpent and fallen unconscious can be revived by smelling ammonia. Jai. I just imagined how somebody bitten by a serpent, bitten by a serpent, fallen unconscious, and like he smells ammonia, he just like awakens, he's revived. And similarly, we all have love of God in our heart, and we perform devotional service, and suddenly we're like, and we're awakened. We're being awakened. That's continuing. After speaking in this way about pure devotional service, Lord Chaitanya began to describe that service and its symptoms to Rupa Goswami. He explained that in pure devotional service there can be no desire other than the desire to advance in Kṛṣṇa consciousness. In Kṛṣṇa consciousness, there is no scope for worshipping any demigod or even any other form of Kṛṣṇa. Nor is there room for indulgence in speculative empiric philosophy or fruitive activities. One should be free from all these contaminations. A devotee should accept only those things that are favorable for keeping his body and soul together, and should reject those things that increase the demands of the body. Only the bare necessities for bodily maintenance should be accepted. By making one's bodily necessities secondary, one can primarily devote his time to the cultivation of Kṛṣṇa consciousness through the chanting of the holy names of God. Pure devotional service means engaging all one's senses in the service of the Lord. At the present moment, our senses are all designated because the body is designated. So we think that our body belongs to a particular society or a particular country or a particular family. In this way, the body is bound by so many designations. Similarly, the senses belong to the body, and when the body is subject to such designations, the senses are also. Thus, one engages the senses on behalf of family, society, nation, and so on. When the senses are so engaged, one cannot cultivate Kṛṣṇa consciousness. The senses must be purified, and this is possible when one purely understands that he belongs to Kṛṣṇa and that his life belongs to Kṛṣṇa. In other words, that his identity is to be an eternal servant of Kṛṣṇa. In this way, one can engage his senses in the service of the Lord, and such engagement is called pure devotional service. A pure devotee accepts the transcendental, loving service of the Lord, but rejects all kinds of liberation for his personal sense gratification. This is stated by Lord Kapila in Srimad Bhagavatam 3.29.11-14 in his explanation of the nature of pure devotional service. As soon as a devotee hears the glories and transcendental qualities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is seated in everyone's heart, his mind at once flows toward the Lord, just as the waters of the Ganges flow down toward the sea. Such spontaneous attraction of the devotee's mind to the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead signifies pure devotional service. Devotional service is pure when one engages in the service of the Supreme Lord without any selfish motive and without being hampered by any material impediment. Jai. We shall continue with this tomorrow. Haribo. So, it's a nice note to conclude today's episode. Without any selfish motive and without being hampered by any material impediment. Jai, let us never be hampered by any material impediment, and let us always stay away from any selfish motives. Haribo. So thank you so much for tuning in today. The link to this book is in the description. Please read it along with us, share it with your friends, share it with everyone you know. Visit our website shravanamdiaries.com, and we shall see you tomorrow. Hare Krishna.